Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Shane Computers. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about this Sony Handycam CCD-TRV 108. Now, this is a very understated old school camera that can be found for pretty cheap compared to other old school camcorders. So you can find it around sub $100, maybe a little bit less, depends on where you're looking. But it might not just be a substitute for, say, a VX1000, VX2000, Canon GL2. There is some stuff that this camera offers that the others don't, but at the same time, there is a lot of cons. So let's get into why this camera even exists in the first place. This is part of the CCD-TRV X08 series. So you have the DCR-TRV 140, which is the flagship. You have the CCD-TRV 608, 408, 308, 108, and 107. These are all basically 8mm tape camcorders made by Sony in 2002. And all of them feature some sort of LCD and some black and white LCD viewfinders, except this one actually, which uses a CRT mechanism for the viewfinder. Let's run through some screen orientations real quick. So as you can see, I now have it in this orientation, which is basically we're going to have it as if you're going to be filming video. But if you want to be viewing the tape per se, then you can just flip it in this direction and see the screen right in front of you. You can also flip it down like this. This way you can see what's going on in the camera if you have it all the way up, without having to stretch your head all the way up along with it. So let's take a moment to actually turn on this camera. We are going to go to, for some reason, player is the camera and the camera is the player for the actual tapes. So let's go to this, and as you can see, we have video right here. So some of the menus real quick. Let's start with the volume buttons over here, which are obviously for video playback on this camcorder. We have the display button. Don't know if you can really see it well. Yep, there you go. You also have an end search button. I do not want to know what I just did. Okay, it just gives me video playback without actually going to that mode. Okay, perfect. So we're back. We also have exposure, which obviously you can either decrease or increase using this slider right over here. And this slider also accepts pressing, so that is how you select menu items, basically. You have title over here. As you can see in this video, we set a title of congratulations because, of course, why not? But you have a bunch of other presets, or you could even make your own. If I could pull up that menu right over here. Right over here, you can see custom 1, custom 2 set, and then you have your languages. You also have easy dubbing, which I never really used because I don't know what it does. You have your menu over here where you can set the aspect ratio to a 16:9 crop, because apparently that existed in 2002 to such a degree where it was a feature in this camera. So here you have cinema and you have 16:9 full, which we have it as off because we want the raw output of this camera to be the output of this camera. You have your digital zoom over here. You can set to 40 or 460. We have it set to 460. But your video quality will look pretty bad. Over here, you could enable your date. So pops up right over there. You could also enable the time, or you could disable it through that, and then the counter reset. Do not know what that does exactly. So those are the menus. Let's go over how the tape mechanism actually works. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to this position so you can see what's going on the side of the camera. We're going to go back to these buttons over here, or not buttons. What should I call this actually? Just a dial. So middle position is off, basically. And if you put it to the bottom, here you have a little Sony Info Lithium system message. And as you can see, it's just a blue screen. For the people who have used digital cameras throughout their lives, consider this a blessing that you didn't have to do all of this. So the way to play back video that you have recorded on this camera is by using these buttons over here. You have play, you have rewind, you have fast forward, pause, and stop. But if you click on play, you're going to see that nothing really. Actually, it was supposed to be like this. Yeah, it's supposed to be like this. But basically what happens is you have to start going back to the clips that you ended up filming by using the fast forward and rewind buttons. Or what you can do for even faster fast forwarding or rewinding is click on stop and then click on the rewind or the fast forward, depending on what you want to do. And what you'll hear is the tape starting to pick up some sound. Let me put it close to the microphone so you can hear. Do not know how well you could hear that, but yes, it is moving a lot. Then we find ourselves on a video that we recorded. So the way you remove this tape and you ended up replacing it was you open up this lid over here, and then you see this amazing eject button. You press on it. Guys, it pops out just like that. Here is the tape, and putting it back in, it goes back in its orientation. You just pop it back in. Actually, before I do that, now you can see the inside of the tape mechanism. Let me actually focus. There you go. That looks much better. I do not want to get into the details of how all this works. If you want a separate video on how a tape mechanism works and reads videos, then we could definitely make that possible. But as of now, we're just going to pop it back inside. You push it inside, and then that's how you end up putting the tape back in or replacing your tape. So I forgot to mention these menu options over here. You have fader, you have backlight, and you have focus. Focus, I'm pretty sure just sets it to manual focus. I could be completely wrong because I never messed with this option. Backlight would be to increase the backlight's brightness in a situation where you really can't see the screen. And fader cycles through some transitions that you could go through when you're recording on this camera if you don't feel like doing any post-production, especially for the type of demographic that this camera was intended for, which we will get into. So in my opinion, the greatest feature of this camera is obviously going to be the night shot. You can see by the infrared right over there that this camera is going to have that amazing night shot look, and through enabling that, everything becomes green. So let's go over some specs of this camera. So you have a 1/6" CCD sensor, so not a CMOS sensor that a lot of cameras use these days. You have a 20x optical zoom. You have a 460x digital zoom, which will look horrendous, but it is still an option. You also have some ways of getting the video out of here without having to eject the tape. You have S video, you have mini AV, and do not know what that last one is. And this shoots from an aperture of 1.4 to 2.9. And as you can see, the actual focal length is from 3.6 to 72 millimeters with a 37 millimeter filter size. So with all those details out of the way, let's get into why this camera is actually unique. So while cameras like the Sony VX1000, VX2000, Canon GL2 are well known in skate filming, they're expensive and they're hard to repair. The TRV-108 is just by definition cheaper because it came out cheaper at that time, and it doesn't have that same value that those other cameras have, but it still delivers that vintage video quality that a lot of people love tape-based media for. Unlike the VX series and the DVX100, which use mini DV, the TRV-108 records on high 8 tapes. High 8 sucks compared to mini DV in quality, but that could be what you're looking for. Less polished, and the cameras bleed out more to a certain extent, which adds to that vintage look that a lot of people might be looking for. Professional camcorders from the time are bulky. They're very big. This thing is very easy to handle. You have this handle right over here that you could just slide your hand through. Don't mind years of wear and tear, obviously, that made this look horrible. And obviously this has a flip out screen, unlike the VX1000 that doesn't have one. To be fair, it's still better in a lot of ways, but we'll get into that. So let's get into the pros. Why would you pick up this camera specifically? So the first pro is that it's pretty cheap on the used market, which means it's great for experimenting without damaging expensive gear. The flip out screen is honestly pretty nice to have for a camera that's basically going to be used for skating, let's be real. This uses real analog tape for the authentic early 2000s look, and because it's pretty cheap, it's low commitment, so you can take it everywhere with you, film hard without worrying about repairs or resale value, especially at its age. So let's get into the cons, because there's quite a few. So the image quality is lower than mini DV based cameras like the VX2000, GL2, and other well-known camcorders. The image quality is just bad. So here's a comparison of the video output from this camera compared to 4K resolution. The high 8 tapes are less common than mini DV tapes, so the cost of replacing tapes is going to get expensive once you start using them. And nobody really knows about this camera or the series. And overall, it has a pretty bad value proposition for what it offers compared to the prices that you're paying today. So without further ado, let's get some skate park clips with it, and keep in mind that we are not using any attachment whatsoever. This is just me holding the camera with a hand. Also keep in mind that there is no fisheye. If you would love to see a fisheye video test with this camera, then let me know. So I ended up going to the skate park with this camera, and I just asked some people if they would let me film, and I couldn't find any skaters at the time, so we found this guy with the BMX. trying to do a couple of bar spins. Also, the audio didn't export correctly, so I'm sorry guys, you have to endure the lack of audio and the mismatch in the audio. You'll see what I mean. And there it is. Yes, sir. That by itself takes confidence. And another friend of his pulled up, also trying to do a couple. He got it. And here he was trying to do a little toboggan. Pulled it off very clean, very easy. Overall, the summary of this video. The Sony CCD-TRV 108 isn't a VX alternative. It was never meant to be. The image control, quality, build quality all suck. You could hear the creaking compared to the other popular old school camcorders, and the target demographic was just families filming their kids growing up and just making home movies in general. Wasn't meant for anything more than that. Now, would I recommend you personally getting a TRV 108? Absolutely not. At least not for the prices that they're listed for. The only reasons I would recommend this is that you know that you want high 8 tape footage. You want an easy to handle camcorder that supports this type of tape, and you feel like having an LCD and a viewfinder is necessary, especially if you want CRT in your viewfinder. Also, I forgot to mention that it does this. Like, that's pretty cool, guys. Also does it at this angle. Amazing. So if these factors align with what you're looking for, then go for a DCR TRV 140. It's a bigger image sensor. It supports digital 8, which is pretty similar to mini DV, has a bigger digital zoom, and it has stereo audio. But if you really want a Sony high 8 camcorder and you want to stick with that high 8 tape, then the CCD-TRV 308 and up would be best. Thank you for watching this detailed video about this fascinating piece of tech from 2002. Stay tuned if this type of content seems interesting to you and you'd like to see what other tech we have to cover. Thank you guys, shukran, and have a great day.